A new Chief Justice has been sworn in as another one retires. Justice Chandrachud has exited, making way for Justice Sanjiv Khanna. Perhaps there is no other Chief Justice who has been scrutinized in the way that Justice Chandrachud has been. What is the reason for that? We don't know. I'm Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo Story. Our focus today is on the legacy of Justice Chandrachud and why he remains one of the most debated, discussed, and polarizing, some would say, Chief Justices of India. I want to welcome to the program now our newsmaker, Justice Madan Lokur, is with us. Welcome to the program, sir. Justice Lokur, why do you think that Justice Chandrachud's legacy has been so debated, that he's been a judge who's been put under the microscope in the way that he has?
Yes, I think the principal reason is that there were a lot of expectations from him. He has been a good judge. He's a competent judge. There's no doubt about it. But prior to his becoming Chief Justice, there were issues in the Supreme Court in terms of issues with the registry. I mean, all kinds of things were happening in that sense. So the general expectation was that he would bring about some stability in the Supreme Court, and we, get on with the work, and rather than get into controversies about the registry, about judgments, and about orders being passed, and so on and so forth. So I think that was the principal reason. Now, somewhere along the line, he belied the expectations of lawyers and the litigating public, and I think that is what seems to have created a problem. The second thing I think is that he was far too accessible, perhaps more than necessary. What happens is that judges, when they speak either in the judicial academy, where there's a closed group of judges, or they speak to law students in the universities. Some of them are visitors, some of them are chancellors in the universities, and so on. But nobody really goes to the public, and gives a speech over there. I think that is what Justice Chandrachud did, perhaps on more than one occasion, and therefore he came under scrutiny.
When you use the phrase more accessible than necessary, are you saying you disagree with the fact that Justice Chandrachud was accessible, that he went to, let's say, media events organized by newspapers, or interacted at functions? Some might say that's an old-fashioned way of thinking of the distance between a judge and the public. Do you personally think that he should not have been accessible in the way he was?
No, I don't think like that. What I think is that this is something which has happened, for the first time. All right. And what are the consequences of this? What are the long-term consequences of this? Are difficult to judge at the moment. Look at it like this. All right, supposing he's done the right thing by going public and speaking on more than one occasion, assuming there's nothing wrong with it. What if chief justices across the country, in the various high courts, start doing the same thing? What is going to happen? All right, go lower down the ladder. What if district judges, within their district, go around giving speeches? What's going to happen? So one doesn't know, what is going to be the consequence of this? What are going to be the implications? There may be, occasions when somebody speaks out of turn, or when somebody expresses a point of view, then there will be an allegation of, conflict of interest. There may be an allegation of bias. So it's early to judge. I'm not saying that he should not have gone public, but I think it should have been done far more discreetly and, understanding or comprehending what are going to be the long term consequences of this down the line.
It's interesting that you bring up the sort of living in the public eye compared to judges prior to him, because live streaming, that is something that lawyers like Indra Jaising and others petitioned for. And the Supreme Court has been live streaming these last many months. Are you saying you would oppose that as well?
No, no, no. No, live streaming is different from, speaking in the public. Okay. It's completely different because then when something is being live streamed, you're in court. All right. There's a case that is being argued. You're not giving a public speech, you're hearing a case. Okay. So it's completely different. I mean, live streaming is welcome and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm not even objecting to, giving public speeches. What I'm saying is that one doesn't know what is going to be the consequence of this. Supposing, we have 34 judges. Supposing each one of them starts giving a speech in public, what's going to be the consequence? We that hasn't been thought through.
Let's come to the verdicts, themselves. There were many critical cases handled by Justice Chandrachud and the benches that he helmed. Uh, are there any judgments that you would give him credit for that you would think were very progressive and forward thinking? I know you have some criticism of his handling of Article 370 and so on. We've spoken about that in the past. We'll come to that later. Are there any judgments that you think, oh wow, well done?
Yes, I mean, I don't want to pick on any particular judgment, but what I would definitely give him credit for is the fact that he, decided constitution bench cases. Many of them were pending for a very, very long time. Five judge cases, seven judge, even nine judge, cases were pending, and they were pending for a long time. Not just a decade, maybe 2 decades, some of them. So he heard them, all right, which is something which no chief justice had done earlier. So yes, I think he deserves full credit for that. It's a different matter, that I would disagree with, some of the views expressed in those judgments, and in fact, some of the judges have also expressed, dissenting views. But that's another matter altogether. The fact is that certain constitutional issues were taken up and decided one way or the other.
Let's come to what you have called mistakes during his tenure. You have listed one as potential mistake as being far too accessible to the media, far too much in the public eye, without thinking through what message that sends down the chain. But when it comes to the verdicts themselves, for example, in his last judgment, he has said bulldozer justice is completely unacceptable. He did deliver on the right to privacy judgment. He was part of decriminalizing homosexuality. So there are all these judgments. There's electoral bonds. But on the other side, his more contentious judgments have been the handing of Article 370, the abrogation, as well as perhaps the Ayodha verdict. Some people have disagreed with it. How do you see these judgments?
Yeah, well, there are a lot of judgments that you have mentioned, but something like bulldozer justice, right? There is no question about the fact that bulldozer justice is not acceptable in any civilized society or any society governed by the rule of law. So far as electoral bonds is concerned, my view is that there should have been a follow up. Okay, so electoral bonds were held to be unconstitutional. But what happens after that? Nothing happened after that. You had, entities donating 500 crores. One particular entity, donated more than 1,000 crores. There were shell companies that donated, I mean, not donated, but purchased electoral bonds. You had, entities that were suffering a loss who have purchased electoral bonds. Um, so where did this money come from? Where did the shell companies get the money? Where did these loss-making concerns get the money? Where did this company or entity get 1,000 crores that it could donate to a political party. And there are some who
But
donated
was that the
200
Supreme Court? Was that the Supreme Court's task to find out?
Yeah, it should have found out, or at least it should have set, the activity in motion. An application was moved, right, to say that listen, appoint an SIT, okay, or CBI or
Okay.
whatever. So that application should have been heard, and I think an SIT should have been formed to find out how come this is happening. We're not talking about small amounts. Okay, we are talking about hundreds of crores, thousands of crores. So there, I think that there was a follow up was necessary.
What about the abrogation of Article 370? And as we discuss these verdicts, we also have to remember that while Justice Chandrachud was the Chief Justice, there were other judges on these benches as well, right?
Yeah,
And if we come to, let's say, the abrogation of 370, of course, we had Fali Nariman, who went on record to say he didn't agree with the judgment. He didn't feel that it addressed the legal principles that it needed to. How do you look back at Justice Chandrachud's legacy, and particularly in context of the abrogation of 370?
yeah. You see, again, there was one very important point, one very important issue that was raised in that judgment, and that issue was that can this sort of a thing happen? Can a state be converted into a union territory, or can it be broken up into two union territories? That was, I think, a very important issue which should have been decided. But to say that no, 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 we'll decide it at some appropriate stage, what does that mean? Does it mean that this thing is likely to happen again? And if it happens, we'll decide it. Why not decide it now, so that if it can happen constitutionally, fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Go ahead. Break up all the states into different union territories if the constitution permits that, or if the constitution does not permit it, say so that it can't be done. So you don't have to wait for another occasion for something like this to happen. So there again,
So you're saying the
I think it was faltered. Sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
you're saying the 370 verdict did not address the key question of whether a state can actually be converted into a union territory in this manner.
Yeah. Yeah. It should have addressed that, which it did not.
And would you list it therefore as one of the mistakes, what you call mistakes of Chandrachud's term?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It is a mistake. I mean, I can't find any other word for it. It is something that should have been done, but was not done.
The most perhaps controversial, politicized discussion around Justice Chandrachud recently was the Prime Minister dropping in to meet him at his residence during a festival. And Justice Chandrachud has addressed this. What did you think of that meeting when Prime Minister Modi was at Justice Chandrachud's residence?
Yeah, I frankly, I don't think it's a good idea. You know, you can have situations when the justification that was given was that judges meet, the prime minister. Um, yes, they do. But that's informal functions. Now, today, for example, we had the swearing in of the new Chief Justice of India. The Prime Minister was there. Now, if he goes and greets the Chief Justice of India, nothing wrong with it. If the President greets the Chief Justice of India, nothing wrong with it. But that is, from a social occasion. You can have social occasions of a different kind. You can have a social occasion such as a wedding. All right. A judge's son, for example, is getting married, or a judge's daughter is getting married, and one of the invitees is the president or the prime minister or whatever. Perfectly fine. Or if there's a death in the family, the somebody goes to pay condolences. That's fine. But going for a puja, or you had a situation sometime back where somebody from the prime minister's office, went to wish the then chief justice of India a happy new year. I mean, These are not normal, or they should be. These are events which should be avoided, or occasions that should be avoided.
But let me push back on that. Some people say that isn't it better that there are images where you can see that the Prime Minister attended a puja at the Chief Justice's house rather than them meeting, like, for example, if both were present at a public function, at a conference, and they're waiting in the green room and they meet away from the gaze of the cameras, none of us would even get to know. Some might argue that this actually signals greater transparency because, of course, the Prime Minister and the Chief Justice of India can meet in private without anyone finding out, should they want to.
Yeah, but why are they meeting? That's the question. Now, if they are sitting in a green room, waiting for their arrival, or whatever, they're not going to discuss policy. They're not going to discuss things, appointments, and so on and so forth. You don't expect them to, right? And also, okay, if they meet in private, why are they doing that? Please remember, the Prime Minister is the head of the executive, all right? And the executive, or the government of India, is one of the biggest litigants in the country. So you can't, just say, okay, let me go there and have dinner with the Prime Minister, or let me go and have dinner with the Chief Justice. I mean, these things should be avoided. You know, Public perception is important. We talk about not only justice should be done, but justice should be seen to be done. Now, if the Prime Minister goes and has dinner with the Chief Justice of India every weekend, or they go out to see a movie, you know, what is the public perception going to be?
Ask you in the end, there are those who say that Justice Chandrachud was a victim of, or his legacy is a victim of the polarized times that we live in. Every time he delivered a verdict that one side agreed with, ideological political side, he was hailed as a great judge, and the other side would say, "Oh, he's so biased," and vice versa. That we do live in these kind of polarized times. A, what do you say to that? And B, do you describe yourself now as a Justice Chandrachud critic, or are there things that you're willing to give him credit for? For example, some people say the collegium decisions became more transparent.
Yes. So far as the polarized times are concerned, I mean, that's going to happen at any point of time. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just that people are talking more about it on social media, or, whatever. But yeah, this thing was happening even earlier. It's not as if it's happening for the first time. So I frankly am not concerned with the fact that we are living in polarized times. There is bound to be there's one. You have two sides, to any case. So one side is bound to say that, listen, the other side is wrong. Now, as far as the second aspect is concerned, yes, I would certainly give Justice Chandrachud full credit for taking on constitution bench cases. Like I said, previous chief justices did not, for whatever reason. Okay, but he did. There was an occasion when a nine-judge bench did sit to, decide on the validity of entry tax. But it wasn't routine. It was an exception. But here, as a matter of routine, constitution benches were sitting five, seven, nine judges. So certainly he has to have credit for that. The other aspect is that, the chief justice also has administrative duties. Okay, like you mentioned about the collegium. All right. There, I think he has altered. Yes, there is, transparency, but unless the the recommendations of the Supreme Court are accepted, or of the collegium are accepted, what good is transparency? You know, you can say that, yeah, I've recommended this person, but that person never gets appointed. So is that good? I don't think so. You know, so just because you're being transparent about it, you know, there must be a follow through, which I think was missing in the collegium recommendations.
Right. So let me end with just one question, and I look forward to a fuller conversation we can have later. If I had to ask you, what was Justice Chandrachud's biggest achievement, and what was his biggest mistake? How would you list either?
Yeah, I don't think it would be fair to say which was his biggest mistake, but his biggest achievement definitely was taking on constitution bench cases, giving life to the constitution through the jurisprudence that has been laid down. I think that's a great achievement because it has solved a lot of problems, you know, in terms of the constitution or the interpretation of the constitution. I think that's a very great achievement. Yeah, and of course, kind of stability that has been brought in, from the times couple of years before he was appointed as Chief Justice.
And what in particular left you disappointed?
Well, what left me disappointed was that there was a lot that could have been done, on the administrative side, for example. Okay, we have a problem. It's been there for a long time. A problem of appointment of judges, problem of number of cases that are pending. We've touched 51 million pending cases. The Supreme Court has 82,000 pending cases. 2 years, I think, was sufficient time to tackle the problem, or at least to begin tackling the problem, so that successive chief justices could, control the situation. But there, I think, nothing much has happened. That has disappointed me.
Well, we leave it there for now, Justice Lokur. And as I said, this needs a longer and a more in-depth conversation. Look forward to doing that in the near
Yeah,
future. Thank you so much, sir, for talking to us. Thank
yeah.
you, sir. Take
Thank
care.
you. Thank you.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.